So you're telling me that bourbon is a terrible pairing for cigars? You got to be like, seriously?
Of course, I fight every single day, every single person that comes in. It is such an old school style pairing, but I think it is a terrible combination of flavor profiles. If you really want to focus on elevating your experience, do not choose bourbon. There's 1,000 other better options to pair with your premium cigar.
So one of the things I love pairing cigars with more than anything else is rum.
Definitely.
'Cause I'm a high-end rum guy. I
Yeah.
like that. And just dipping the cigar in the rum and smoking is just, there is a flavor enhancement through that. But I never really thought about bourbon not cooperating with the cigar. So
Yeah.
why is that?
I mean, here in Nashville, Tennessee, just outside of Kentucky, this is a bourbon market. It's a bourbon heaven. It is not like the West Coast where they're getting very minimal, small amount of bottles. So we have a grand selection and everybody that comes here wants to partake. But bourbon as a whole, I mean, you can get into the nitty gritty of the flavor profiles. And that's why I say it's a terrible pairing, because if you go in blindly, picking a random cigar, picking a random bourbon, they're gonna fight each other. They're not working together to elevate the experience. They're almost giving you the exact same flavor profile of this kind of oaky, charred thing, vanilla from the bourbon on a basic level, and then the cigar is just gonna add that salty, woody taste too. So you're not elevating your experience, you're not pairing very well, you're double downing on the exact same flavor profile. So sometimes they fight each other rather than enhancing and working together to create a new experience. My pairing 101, very basic, is you want to match intensity levels and contrast flavor profiles. So that's why the bourbon is so terrible with a cigar, because you're just matching and echoing the same thing over and over again. So it's a little less engaging, a little less balanced on your palate. I think the better option there, my number one, is always Brandy. It's a little lower proof, it's a little extra sweetness, and you still get that acidity baseline from the grapes, where you actually add a little bit more texture and balance to your palate as you're smoking that generally salty and bitter cigar.
So Brandy, you're saying, is one of the better ones. What? Now I know you're a wine drinker, so
Big wine guy.
You like wine.
A lot of champagnes, especially because of that bubble texture, adds a lot of really unique things. Champagne is obviously very light and delicate, so that's going to get washed out from a lot of bolder cigars. So if you're smoking a milder cigar, champagne is awesome. If you're smoking a bolder cigar, same with Brandy. There's a lot of unbelievable wines that pair well because it's adding that acidity, which most cigars are lacking. And that's my biggest thing. Bourbon is not adding anything. It's almost taking away from the cigar. Wine, rum, things of that nature is going to add another level and add a contrasting flavor profile.
What about Madeira? Are you familiar with Madeira?
Love Madeira.
Of course you are.
Of course. It is almost an underground category nowadays. You don't see it a lot. It's at some really old school, like I always categorize bars, that old school New York style. You see it that old school steakhouse that might have a couple on the menu, but it is definitely not as popular as it used to be or should be, in my opinion. But that's a great option.
What about, so pairing Madeira, you're a fan?
Oh, definitely. And again, it's really focused, same with rums, really focused on adding some sweetness, adding some acidity to balance out what a generic cigar would be, a little bit more bitter, a little bit more salty.
So I've got a friend of mine that introduced me to Madeira. Golly, it's been 7-8 years ago. I'd never heard of it. I'm not, as you know, I'm not a huge wine drinker, although I'm becoming, I'm enjoying
finally.
it more and more. But they are big. They're big wine drinkers, and they used to own wine stores in California before they moved to Nashville. And they brought a bottle of Madeira over, and I think it was rainwater, Blandy's rainwater Madeira. I think it was 10 or 12 years old. I don't know what it was, but I was like, whoa, this is really good. And then it paired with the cigar beautifully. But like you're saying, rarely when I go to a place that serves any kind of, that has alcohol and cigars together, that has Madeira. Like, it's very few times.
Yeah.
And I can say, do you have Madeira? And they're like, what's that?
Yeah.
It's like going to a liquor store and say, do you have any Armagnac? And they're like, Armagnac what?
That's
like,
not a thing. I don't know.
They don't know what. So, speaking of Armagnac and Cognac, what do you think about Cognac and Armagnac as a pairing with cigars?
Oh, yeah. So both of those are just a subcategory of Brandy. Brandy is the overarching style, and then in France, Cognac region and Armagnac region. So it's a brandy made in a specific region of France. Both unbelievable. I was just having this conversation the other day. Armagnac gets a little bit more funky and fun. They have a little less restrictions than Cognac. Cognac is the cleaner, smoother, older brother. Armagnac is the little more rough around the edges. And then you can get all the way to a grappa, which is made with the shells and the stems and the seeds of the grapes. So that gets real weird, real funky, really raw kind of grape flavoring on that.
So you may be wondering, why have I tuned into the root of all success and these guys are talking about alcohol and cigar pairings? Well, the reason we're talking about it is that I've got as a guest on the show today, Paul Pearse, who is the founder and owner of Franklin Cigar, Nashville Cigar, Martha Madeira, what it's called in East Nashville, and then also the Ariston, which is a cocktail and cigar bar right here in downtown Nashville on Church Street, which is where we're at today. PJ's been so kind to let us, I think we've recorded now, I don't know, 5 or 6 episodes here at the Ariston, and today he is the guest on the show, and we're smoking an Atabey. Tell us a little. This is a fantastic cigar. I've only, just lit it right before we started.
Yeah.
This is really, really good. Tell us about this.
So this is the Atabey, but an extra special version of it. So this is called the Black Ritos. Atabey is made by a gentleman named Nelson Alfonso. Fantastic cigar creator, been in the business a long time. Kind of anything that came out of Cuba, he had a hand in some way or another. But in 1999, his great-great-great-grandfather, who has passed away, obviously, started a company back in the day. And then in 1999, he got that company back in his family name, moved the operations to Costa Rica, and started producing cigars for the U.S. market, because he's been in Cuba for pretty much all of his career. That's the Byron line. That's the Byron line. He also has the Atabey, which the typical one is a very, very soft, delicate cigar, aged 5 years after it's rolled, and it's just an unbelievable, mild, great morning cigar with a cup of coffee. This is exclusive for 10 locations in the United States. This is the Black Ritos, so a Maduro version of that same binder and filler. So you add a little bit more dark coffee, a little bit more of that kind of richness to it, a little bit thicker, but not a ton of intensity added to it. So you're switching up your flavor profile, but keeping that mellow, easy smoke. So great for a morning recording like today.
This is really, really good. Of course, cigars change throughout the whole smoke, so we'll see if there's any changes. But this is, to start, is really, really good.
I can fight on that too. That's a big one.
Really?
Transitions in a cigar are a flaw. And it's massively important to understand why this all happened. Back in the day, cigars, they essentially couldn't make consistent enough tobacco, so it would naturally change as you smoke. And then marketing and advertising and everything got a hand in that, so they started communicating the benefits of transitions and all of these wonderful things and complexities in a blend. But it really, end of the day, it's a flaw in a cigar. A cigar should be a perfect flavor profile that's consistent and steady and balanced from start to finish.
That makes total sense, because the cigars that I like to smoke more than anything else are that, and they all the way to the nub. The first time I ever smoked a Samparai, which is my favorite, you introduced me to it. And it was at a cigar pairing dinner event that we did at a club locally here in Nashville. And I'd never heard of that cigar, and I never smoked cigars down to where I can't hold it anymore. Because it's never that good. And that was the first one that I ever smoked to the point where my fingers were starting to burn. It's like, but I don't want to give it up.
Don't want to put it out.
Because it's so good.
I mean, people ask me all the time, when do you stop smoking a cigar? When you get to the band, whatever. I just stop it when you stop enjoying it. And sometimes that's the first third, throw it out. Sometimes it's burning your fingers. And it changes based on the experience, and it changes based on the blend.
So when did you get into the cigar business as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so my father and my brother-in-law actually opened up our first business, Franklin Cigar, back in 2013. I came down here to help out with the business, to start going to college. I was fairly young, just graduated high school when that whole thing started. Joined the restaurant industry as well. So about 2013 is when the professional career started. Didn't know much. Obviously smoked for maybe a year, technically.
As far as your mom and dad know.
Yeah. But started working at the shop, started engaging in this wonderful industry, fell in love with obviously the process of creating tobacco, the combination of the science and the art that it takes to create these unbelievable blends, and then more importantly fell in love with the culture around it, the community of the cigar industry, and the community that a lounge gets to have. There's nothing like a cigar lounge. I say it all the time. It's one of the last places that either a single guy or a group of guys can go in and enjoy the company of random people that they would have never talked to, would have never met, and have a great experience towards that.
There is something about that I don't think people consider.
Yeah.
Because smoking has had a bad rep for many years, as it probably should, because of the dangers of the chemicals in a cigarette. But cigars are completely different. And I'd love to get your take on that. But besides all that, when I started smoking cigars, it was the experience more than the actual thing.
100%.
But now that my palate is refined a little bit more, I like a really nice cigar. I don't want to smoke black and milds.
Oh yeah.
But the idea of sitting down, I can go into your shops, one of your shops. I can go in. I could be traveling, go into a cigar shop in the middle of a city somewhere else, get a cigar, sit down across from someone I've never met before, and have fantastic conversations. And this world needs that. We need.
And there's nothing else like it. I mean, you can't go to a bar or a restaurant, and yeah, you might chat with the guy next to you for a second, but you're not immersed in this deeper conversation. So part of it is just the culture around it and the community driven. And part of it, people are just so relaxed and welcoming when they're smoking. I mean, I think back to the college days when you're going to a party, the most entertaining part of the party is always the smoking circles out back. So it just relaxes people. You get in this mindset where you kind of decompress a little bit, drop some of the, can I cuss on here?
Yeah.
Okay. Drop some of the bullshit of your life and really just enjoy the environment and kind of slow down and focus on what's going on. So that community driven, that philosophy, especially coming from a family business, that philosophy of inviting people into our living room every day, I just fell in love with that hospitality and service of this business.
So in 2013, your dad starts Franklin Cigar down in Franklin, Tennessee, which is just south of Nashville. The way I remember the story is there was a cigar shop that was kind of failing or going out of business, and you guys stepped in and revitalized it, changed brands and all that. That's what that happened.
Yeah, we've done that for all four of our businesses.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because now with Nashville Cigar, you did the same thing in that's over
2019 in Green Hills, just outside of Nashville.
So 6 years. So 6 years. Started the first one. 6 years later, you do 2019. You start Nashville Cigar, and then in what year did you start Martha, my dear?
2023.
So 23. So a year ago, a little over a year ago from this recording, you start, and this is a different concept. This is not cigars at all, right?
Definitely. So the two cigar shops, our first two businesses, very similar. Different clienteles, named them differently because they're trying to attract a different audience and kind of have a different culture, and that's why we did that. But cigar retail. This new business, Martha My Dear, is the cocktail bar. It's a neighborhood cocktail bar with great prices, great happy hour, a place you can go multiple times a week. You can get the elegance of great cocktails and great products without the prestige of everything else that goes along with that sometimes. So trying to break down some of the things that aren't always necessary, cheapen up that more approachable price point for premium cocktails, and just still have a place where people can be comfortable and go consistently.
And then in 2024, you opened this place, which is the Ariston. And the Ariston is a cocktail bar paired with cigars. Because this was, for years, it was another cigar shop. And they went out of business. And so you stepped in and said, hey, we're going to turn this into kind of an upscale cocktail bar to make really cool cocktails.
Exactly.
But keep the cigar kind of idea.
Exactly. This was a great opportunity for us and something we've been looking at for years. Even if as this other business was operating, we always respected what they did and loved the location and was jealous of what they were doing. And then the opportunity came up where we could just kind of combine everything we've been doing the last few years, and it just kind of worked out.
Let's take a quick break to thank our amazing sponsors for making this podcast possible.
As an entrepreneur running multiple businesses, effective communication is critical for me. I've tried all kinds of outreach tools over the years, but none have compared to Dubb when it comes to driving real results, and that's DUBB. I was one of Dubb's first users. I think it was like 7 years ago when they first launched, and I've been a loyal customer ever since. Dubb has completely transformed my prospecting, my client communication strategy, and here's why. Dubb makes it simple to record personal video messages and share them across email, SMS, social media, and more. And this brings back the face-to-face connection that's missing from most digital outreach. And what happens is my prospects instantly feel more engaged when they can put my face to my name. I end up building a stronger relationship faster by incorporating these video messaging into my workflow. Dubb also provides tracking and analytics so I can see exactly who engages with my videos and how they respond to them. Their automation and their CRM features help me nurture leads and close more deals. I mean, that's what we're trying to do, right, as entrepreneurs. So after using Dubb for years, I absolutely can't recommend them enough. I mean, the Ruben, those guys over there are phenomenal. I love Darius. They're all great guys. It's become an invaluable tool that I depend upon to run my businesses efficiently. And if you want to boost your outreach and see amazing results like I have, head over to therealjasonduncan.com/Dubb, that's DUBB, and you can try it completely for free. No credit card required. You get the first 50% off your first 2 months, by the way, if you use my link. You need to take your prospecting to the next level with video messaging from Dubb. They're my go-to sales communication platform for nearly 7 years and counting. Go to therealjasonduncan.com/Dubb. Try it for free, no credit card required, and you'll get 50% off your first 2 months as well.
Thanks for listening to our sponsors. Now, back to the show.
For the next step, probably did a little too early, but it was the right timing for what happened.
So 4 distinct businesses, and we're going back now to 2013, so 11 years ago. What's Dad think about all this? Because it's expanded quite a bit.
Crazier than he ever thought it would be, but as he's approaching that older age and taking a step away from some things, more focused as a CFO role, he has understood, especially the last few years, of my vision of the company, where we want to take it, how we want to expand, and then kind of the future is on me rather than what he built in his career.
Is this what you thought you'd do? Did you ever think you'd be operating cigar bars and cocktail lounges?
Honestly, yeah. From a very early age, just like many great companies, it started in my parents' garage. I didn't start with high-tech technology or inventing anything. It was just throwing parties. That's all it was. I loved hosting. I loved entertaining. I was not blessed with singing abilities or acting or playing music. So I really found my passion at an early age of hosting parties and hosting gatherings, whatever it might be, from small groups to some bigger things that went on back then. So always had a love for that kind of thing, always had a love for business. Marketing is kind of where I started, especially in high school and early college. A lot of design, that was my one of my majors. So kind of combining all my skills from really when I was a very little kid and then kind of building up. We have a very entrepreneurship family. A lot of my sisters and parents both own their own companies. So that was always kind of what I wanted to do.
So now here you are.
Yeah.
You've been doing this now for a decade, and things seem to be going pretty well. What's on the agenda? Like, what's the next step? Is it just more of the same thing? Is it different cities? What are you thinking about doing?
I mean, based on where we've been and what we've been doing, I think the steady growth and the perfecting of operations and everything we've been doing. But I think we are an opportunist kind of company. All 4 locations have been what is considered a failed business that wanted to sell and get out of it, that we found opportunity, we found a good deal, we found a spot that we can quickly turn around, rebrand, come in with our expertise, and make it into a successful business. So the long-term goal is continue to build this entertainment group. We have a retail arm right now. We have a hospitality arm right now. Both of those continue to develop fun and interesting concepts, and then continue to build more in that entertainment group with new arms and new philosophies and new fun things to do. It's a
lot of fun. I mean, you and I met through one of the businesses here in Nashville that sells cigars, and you provide the cigars for their club, and then you hosted some cigar dinners and tastings and pairings, and that's when we first met, and that's when I became aware of the idea of cigars tasting different with different pairings of alcohol and food. Tasting different with alcohol. My palate was not refined enough to see the subtle differences or experience the subtle differences. But I remember one of the most interesting ones was with the tequila pairing, and I don't remember what cigar it was with. I don't remember what brand cigars we had, but we did a tequila pairing. And I'm not a tequila drinker. I'm not a big fan of tequila, but that night, and again, still not a huge fan of tequila, but the difference in flavors of the food with the different tequilas was just absolutely phenomenal. And what I enjoy about that is that I think that, God was so amazing at hiding all this stuff that we could find. There's a proverb in the book that Solomon wrote in the book of Proverbs that it is the glory of God to conceal a matter, and it is the glory of kings to reveal a matter.
Oh, very good.
And I love and the way I interpret that is that God hid all this stuff in this thing called tobacco, and these things, tequila with the agave plant, and bourbon and corn, and all these things, he hid them.
Yeah, these raw materials
and we found them.
Yeah,
and that's so cool. It's such a cool thing. Now, I'm certain there are people that would watch this or listen to this and goes, yeah, and people are dying. People abuse everything.
Oh, everything's great in moderation.
Yeah.
Especially in something like this that on a United States level is attacked with premium tobacco being lumped in with the rest of the tobacco industry. But I tell people, like we talked about before, it's not the tobacco that's going to get you back. It's the culture. It's the environment. But beyond that, I mean, it is good for the soul. It's good for your mind. It's good to relax and decompress and get away from that daily grind all the time, to just kind of either be by yourself or be with a small group or hanging out with a large amount of people. It really helps you slow down and kind of focus on life a little bit. So whether you do it once a year on your birthday or weekly like gentlemen like myself, I really think it is good for the soul, good for the mind.
I was at you've probably been to this place in Gatlinburg. There's a little cigar shop in Gatlinburg, tobacco shop. And inside that tobacco shop, he has a placard of a statement from the U.S. Attorney General about pipe smoking. Have you know what I'm talking about?
I don't know.
Okay, so I've got a picture of this on my phone. I need to show you after the show. But it's a statement from the U.S. Attorney General, and I don't know how long ago this was written, and it might be fake for all I know, but it said that men who smoke pipes, and it was specifically talking about pipe smoking, but it said men who smoke pipes have less occurrences of cancer than men who don't, and live longer than men who don't. And there was no color context or anything. There was no commentary on this, but my suspicion is that is because men who smoke pipes, or in this case cigars, we stop, we slow down, and we relax.
Yeah.
Where men who don't, I mean, when are they going to do it?
It's a constant go, go, go. And I mean, the biggest difference between a cigarette smoker and a cigar smoker, cigarettes are a habit that you burn through to get that 1 second of relief and then back to whatever you're doing. It's a very white knuckle kind of philosophy. Modern day smoking cigarettes, they don't seem very relaxed, in my opinion. With cigars, most people are very relaxed, most people are very welcoming, and they decompress a little bit. So it's just a different mindset completely while you're enjoying it.
Well, and let's talk about the composition, because I think a lot of people that look at cigars, they don't understand that the tobacco here is completely different than tobacco in a cigarette.
Yeah.
They don't understand the chemical makeup, the nicotine makeup, the differences. So explain it to me like I don't know anything. What is the difference between this and a cigarette?
So firstly, this is 100% tobacco, 100% raw material that is cured and aged, cured, fermented, and aged to a proper process where it's smokable. The biggest difference in your typical cigarette, a Marlboro or something along those lines, there's been studies, there's less than 10% of tobacco even in that cigarette. So the way they treat tobacco in a premium cigar is completely different, and then all the stuff they add in a cigarette outside of tobacco changes by the company, but none of it's good. Makes it more addictive. It's not like the 50s. The 50s was premium high-end cigarettes and 100% tobacco with a paper and a filter. Nowadays, it's all watered down. There's very little tobacco in there anyway. Makes it more addictive and more harsh for your lungs. Makes the whole process worse. But just in a 101 form, the treatment of tobacco, this is a process planted in the ground, hand-picked off a plant, and then cured or hand-selected throughout the entire process. A cigarette field is bulldozed down, mixed with the dirt and the crap and the fertilizer, whatever else is in that field, stems and all, chopped up, ground up, processed on a granite slab, and just packed in as much as they could fit in a warehouse. So just the care of the process is massively different. And then you think of every other step that it takes. If they're not even treating the raw material well, what else are they doing to it? So with premium cigars, it is 100% tobacco. There's no additives unless you're talking about a little bit infused. That's a different category. But a natural 100% premium cigar, there's nothing else in there. Actual tobacco.
So I've heard that nicotine is the addictive chemical in tobacco. So what does that mean when you're looking at cigarettes that are addictive and have chemicals added versus this? How much nicotine is in this versus a cigarette, and is the whole idea of nicotine the problem?
I mean, nicotine's an interesting conversation because there's nicotine in a lot of things, not just tobacco. It's naturally in tobacco, and yeah, there's a level of that is addictive, and it's more than a lot of other things. But there's nicotine in broccoli. There's nicotine in a ton of other things that naturally occur just on a much lower level. But the chemicals that they add are much more addictive in a cigarette than they don't add anything. So the natural nicotine in here is probably more than that nicotine in cigarette, but it doesn't have everything else in it.
So there's more nicotine in a cigar?
In a typical cigar, because you're looking at about 5 to 7 leaves of tobacco, half leaves, depending on what cigar you're talking about, how big the cigar is, what the blend is. So you have just a lot more tobacco in an hour and a half smoking experience than a single cigarette. So you're kind of apples and oranges when you really start comparing them. But again, how many people are smoking 2 packs a day versus 1 cigar a week? Then it's just different philosophies.
Well, and I think it should be, it's a I guess, evidence that cigars are not as problematic as cigarettes, because if you look at life insurance doesn't count cigars and occasional cigar smoking against you.
The FDA is fighting tobacco very hard, but the FDA has come out and said if you average, I think, again, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a politician, I don't talk about, I drink and smoke for a living, but the FDA, there's been studies that they've come out and said if you're averaging 1 cigar a week for a 20-year span, there's no long-term deficits to your health. And those numbers just keep going up as they keep doing studies. So they can't see a connection with any health deficiencies with premium cigars, if that's all you're doing.
Well, so why then do we see the U.S. Surgeon General's warning on cigars that say this is not a safe alternative to cigarettes?
Again, I don't like to join the political conversation. That's not what we do. We push that off. We're here to relax and hang out and have fun. But it just gets lumped into the rest of the tobacco industry. And them not knowing what they're doing and going in blind, all of those conversations are still very active. But the end-all goal is to stop kids from smoking cigarettes. So the belief of what they're doing is good-hearted, at least, because kids shouldn't be smoking cigarettes. Kids shouldn't be smoking vapes, and that's what they're attacking. And then everything else kind of just gets lumped into the tobacco conversation. And there's a lot of companies in the premium tobacco world that are trying to define and release our side of the industry to everything else. And that's an uphill battle, but the more topic of conversation and the more education that Washington has, the better off it'll get.
We were talking before the show that you have a sign downstairs that says that cigarettes are not allowed in here and pipes are not allowed here. There were some other things, but those were the two things I remember. And I was asking you about that.
Yeah.
And I said, well, is that a preferential thing? Why not pipes? Because I smoke a pipe occasionally.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, that's the law. Like
yeah,
the
just
law.
a Nashville smoking ban that happened last year. Not allowed to smoke indoors with a liquor license anymore. And that cut off a ton of like cigarette bars. Not fair for the employees, the customers, whatever. Again, I'm not joining a political conversation. We try to avoid that at all costs, but it's just a policy that doesn't make sense to the average person.
Yeah, because I remember, when I was growing up, I mean, it was smoke when you went to a restaurant, like smoking or non-smoking. Like you get and I started waiting tables in college, and I hated being assigned to a smoking area.
Yeah.
Because that still happened, and it boggles my mind that we used to smoke in public restaurants.
Yeah,
but
in airplanes, airplanes still get me. That's just insanity.
See, I was not around when that happened. But
Yeah,
I can't. Can you imagine being on an airplane, some dude smoking next to you?
There's no ventilation.
Oh my
There's
gosh!
It's just sitting there.
A cigar.
You're in row
otherwise.
14. All right. Well, it's non-smoking. You're welcome. It's just insane to me.
You know what? Side story on that. Who was it? Is it Danny DeVito? I think Danny DeVito. I could have it might not have been him, but I'm almost certain it was him. Was telling a story one time about he was on an airplane, and that somebody said something to him about smoking cigars, and he said, "Hey, do you want to smoke a cigar?" Like it. And the captain came out and said, "Look, I think you should smoke a cigar." And he goes, "Well, I'll smoke one if you smoke one." And the captain's like, "All right." And so they both smoked a cigar on a commercial flight. Anyway, that's a funny story. But I can't imagine this smoking in restaurants, smoking on airplanes. But I remember that if a place allowed smoking, it had to be 21 up for the longest time. So you're telling me that just changed?
Yeah, beginning of last year, that's changed. You are not allowed to smoke unless you sell tobacco and get a bypass on that rule.
So you have to sell tobacco.
Yeah. So it has to be a certain amount. I mean, you can get into the nitty gritty of it, but it just doesn't make sense to me that all of these bars with their clientele and people are willing, free Americans walking into a place, and now they can't do what they want. So they cut out, a very small number of bars still allowed smoking. And then they just, nope, I don't like it, cut it all out.
Man.
So
that's crazy. And the fact that you can't smoke pipes in a cigar bar, that's insane to me. Where else would you go?
Retail spots. So it's just a combination of the liquor license.
Oh, it's just with the liquor license.
Yeah.
So if it's just a cigar bar, they don't sell any alcohol, you could smoke a pipe in there?
Yeah, and that's just Nashville.
Oh, okay.
So in the area of Nashville, they just ban smoking, and all tobacco gets lumped in like everywhere. So in Nashville, you're not allowed to actually smoke a pipe in a cigar bar if they have a liquor license. But, again, who's checking either? We're following the rules because that's what we do, but I don't know how many people are checking.
So how many cigars?
And I don't want this to start having people check more, so.
Well, how many, the 3 people that watch this show, we're good. But how many cigar shops are in Davidson County?
Ooh. More than you think. There's a lot of, Nashville's generally pretty good to tobacco, in Tennessee in general, so there's a lot of shops. And it depends, Atlanta has a ton of shops, Phoenix has a ton of shops, obviously Florida, so it's not as big as those markets, but it's a relatively high-end market with a lot of traffic, a lot of hospitality, a lot of entertainment, so you got a lot of tourism. Generally, those kind of things follow along the same lines.
So, do you see, like, if you had to project 5 years down the road, are you going to own more cigar and cocktail bars in Nashville, or are you going to move to different cities?
It depends on what the retail side, we focus on the neighborhoods, focus on the high-end areas, but definitely on the outskirts of town. So a little more localized, a little more recurring business. And then this concept is the downtown tourism-driven kind of philosophy. Very high-end, very business traveler, tourism, that's the main focus. So this one probably won't go multiple locations in the same area. This is a concept we'd love to take to other great tourism cities.
So you've been pretty successful in this. I mean, it's a decade long, or a decade or more in business. Most businesses don't ever do that. So you're in a rarefied company if you take a business past 10 years. So here you are. You've done that. So congratulations on your success.
Thank you.
What do you think has been the key to that success for you and your family?
I mean, really the biggest key for long-term success to me is persistence. It is just showing up every day, working hard, getting things done, still having that drive, still having that ambition. 10 years is a long time, and we've created a lot of fun concepts throughout that and had a lot of hard times throughout that as well. It's not easy work running your own business. I mean, and a lot of your guests know, but it's the persistence and the long-term vision that keeps you going. I say to my part-timers and everyone we hire, every individual task that we do isn't necessarily hard. It's hard to show up every single day and do it at the highest level. So that consistency and that persistence of just getting a little bit better every single day and over a long period of time, you're making massive changes. So me starting so young in this business, very green in all of these things, it really was just persistence of learning, persistence of building my own skill sets, building the team around me, and then continuously not taking for granted the position I was in. So wanting to build off the success of both of my parents. So continuously trying to build the future, not only for my life, but the next generation as well.
So persistence. So how do you, if that's been the key to your success, how would you define success? What does that word mean to you?
Success to me has always meant freedom. I think obviously financial freedom, the bigger you grow, the more money you make, the less stress and the less bogging down the day-to-day life may be. Not having to worry about your bills and that kind of thing. So financial freedom is always most people's goal when they start a business. But more importantly, I think freedom of your time and creative freedom of your business. Freedom of your time to not only as you grow and as you hire and as you build a team, you can delegate a little bit more so you can focus on the most important things, but also just freedom of your schedule of prioritizing family or travel or other goals, things like that. But in my opinion, the creative freedom is most important, especially me at my age with the long-term goals and visions we have for this company. The more successful we get, the more creative we can be. And the more we can invest in concepts and really dial in exactly what people want in new and creative offerings. So that creative freedom of doing anything that we want opens up a lot of doors the more successful you are.
With that as a definition, having freedom, do you consider yourself to be successful?
Honestly, no. I mean, it's a hard thing to say, but everything we're accomplishing right now and all of the great and bad things happening in today's world and today's business, all of these goals were thought out and started 5 to 10 years ago. So I'm always feel behind in my head because now I'm looking at 5-10 years ahead. So I don't feel like I'm successful because I still have that next pillar and that drive to create more things. So in my opinion now, I don't feel like I'm successful because I have that future and those bigger things ahead. And it'll probably always stay that way. There's always that next hoop to jump through. There's always that next thing to do or that next goal you want to accomplish. But that's how you build. That's how you grow. That's how life should be.
So,
and I'm young and ambitious and got a lot of things going on. So it's a very different philosophy at my stage in my career.
Well, so I would encourage you to take a broader view of that, because as an entrepreneur who's been down the road longer than you have, sitting across from people in this chair, yes, success is defined differently by everybody. And that's why I ask everybody on the show. And I think ultimate success for most people boils down to what you said. It's freedom of time, freedom of money, having financial freedom, which is time freedom as well. Maybe you're not exactly where you want to be, but in terms of your success, I mean, how many people could say, we have been in business for 11 years and we have 4 different venues, 4 different locations, 4 different concepts, well, 2 different concepts, but 4 different locations.
4 locations.
And listen, dude, that is success. That is success.
And yeah, every conversation has the backside of it. So the first year of a business is a huge grind, a huge undertaking. First 3 years are very, very difficult to start creating that financial gain. And I constantly find myself reminding the team, and especially my business partner at Martha's, we went to college together. We met first day of college. We dreamed of this since then. And constant conversation of even 2 years ago, we were dreaming of this moment right now that we're in. And the hardships and trying to get more people in the door, getting more exposure, getting better at the practices, all the hard things of the first 3 years of a business that we're struggling with right now, the long hours, the late nights. 2 years ago, we were dreaming for that. We're dreaming for the opportunity, dreaming to actually put all of these fun goals and exciting philosophies we have to practice, and now we get to. So yeah, the level of success, I think the level of the baseline of where you're at, I mean, I feel like I'm always been successful. I've always felt like I would get successful because of that persistence and my personality, but there's always the next level. So I think yes to the question and a lot of no to the question.
Well, so now I want you to put your advisor hat on. So we've got people listening to the show that are in those early years. The first year is hard, it's a grind. First 3 years is figuring crap out. How's this going to work? How do we make this happen and work long term? What would you advise a young entrepreneur like you were 10 years ago? What's your best piece of advice for them? And it can't be persistence because we already talked about that. So other than that, what would you say?
Probably 2 things. I think the main thing, in my opinion, is be present, especially on the hard times, especially as you grow. There's a lot of leaders that aren't present anymore, and they don't understand what they're really providing to their customer base. They don't understand who's even working for them at any point. So being present, not only in your home life when you're there, but also in your business, understanding what it still feels like to walk in a door for the first time and what that customer interaction might be like. I think the second side of this that still is be present is it's all about your team. Having an unbelievable team in training and developing them, and I always say building authentic relationships with your team and with your customer base, that's going to go a long way. So understanding their needs and their wants and their long-term visions and trying your hardest to put them in the right places and build their skill sets as well to make those things happen, whether it is with you long-term or they start their own thing or join another company. You want to build that culture of your own company where there is long-term growth. So I think being present on both of those things, being present with your customer base, being present with your finances and understanding what's going on, what's going in and out, and being present with your team is massively important.
That's very wise. Very wise.
I mean, I'm young, but I've had a lot of failures at that. So again, just trying to get better every day and focus on these philosophies that you say, but you don't always practice that well. So just getting better every day, but being as present as possible.
Well, so let's go back to the cigars and that cigars and alcohol, because that's what you do. You joked, I drink and smoke for a living.
I drink and smoke for a living. That's
pretty cool.
Part.
That's a pretty cool,
Yeah.
pretty cool business card. I drink and smoke for a living. What's been the coolest thing you've learned about the cigar industry or the alcohol industry that people would be surprised to know?
Honestly, when you're outside of the industry and maybe getting into it as a hobby, it's very intimidating and it's hard to learn and it's very scary, especially cigars. If you're a young guy, you're not really the market, and it should be, and they're growing to communicate better to that younger audience that's a legal age that can make their own decision. It's not what I'm talking about, but it's very hard to learn this business. So I think the greatest thing about any consumables, and that's what we do, all consumables, how much time and energy it takes to create these things. And like cigars, it's still a handmade product. In 2024, real humans are actually rolling these cigars every single day, and then all of the steps of the process, they say about 300 hands touch every cigar that actually comes out of a factory. So it's an unbelievable amount of time and energy and philosophy and that combination of science and art to create these things, where I just have a amazing amount of respect and appreciation for the wine world, the spirit world, and then of course the tobacco world that has dedicated generations to creating something so unbelievable.
What's your favorite cigar?
God, the Atabey Black Ritos that we're smoking right now.
This is pretty
What are you
dang
talking
good.
about? No, I love this cigar. I think the three major cigars that I smoke on a daily basis that I'm constantly recommending that are higher ticket price, but I think should be doubled. I think the value you're getting out of the product is way more than the price you're paying. It's going to be Davidoff, it's going to be the Byron Atabey family, and it's going to be the Samprais. I think they're pushing forward the business and only focused on the customer experience and not all of the other headaches of running a business. So I think, again, massive amount of respect of those three companies in particular that are really pushing the boundaries.
I think most cigar smokers have heard of Davidoff for sure.
Yeah.
Atabey and Byron, if you're smoking in higher end shops, you probably heard of those. Samprai, nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever heard of that guy or that brand. And had it not been for you, I wouldn't know about it. And it is the purple band.
Yeah.
Samprai is by far my favorite cigar.
Like what I smoke on my birthday, it's going to be a purple Samprai.
Yeah, that is the best. So
it's the Rolls Royce of the business.
yeah, and it's not terribly expensive considering.
Ooh,
you know,
it's
it's
only,
only,
that conversation.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a $42 a stick.
Yeah.
You said that some of these cigars should be charging double that. I'm glad they don't, because 42
Yeah,
is still
of course.
expensive.
But when you look at the actual price of these cigars and what it takes to create, and I think marketing and overpriced, I mean, that is all still real. And there's a lot of $40 cigars that I would love to sell that their quality doesn't match the price point, so we don't. So there's a lot of bad stuff out there, don't get me wrong. But in particular, there are some companies that are making an unbelievable product and it takes so much energy to create, it should be higher. But here's really what it comes down to. In my opinion, I think any of those three companies could be this example. But in my opinion, that Samprai Purple Bellicoso, the best of the best in this industry. So for 2 hours, you're going to spend $40 to get the top tier of a business. You can't go golfing for $40 to go play the best course. You can't go drive cars, shoot guns, go to a restaurant. To do the best of the best in the industry for $20 an hour is unbelievably cheap to me. So yeah, when you compare it to the lower end of this industry, they seem a lot higher. But when you compare it to any other entertainment section, it's incredibly cheap.
Well, when you look at it that way, that certainly makes sense. Because I think about the times when I smoke a Samprai, like I don't smoke it when I'm busy.
No,
I don't
of course
smoke
not.
it when I got stuff to do. It is definitely going to be when I'm sitting down and I've got time to relax, to think, to really kind of just enjoy that hour and a half or so that I'm going to be smoking that cigar.
And there's cigars for every occasion. I mean, everyone's got a tier, right? There's going to be celebratory cigars. There's going to be cigars you want to just sit down and immerse yourself with. And then there's going to be lawn mowing cigars. Golf course cigars you can throw out halfway through. So everyone's got a top end and a low end, and that's definitely. But we try to always showcase that top end because you should see what this industry is providing at the highest level. And you should always be looking forward to what you smoke. If you're just smoking to smoke, you're kind of losing the passion of this industry. So we always try to say, you should enjoy and be excited for every cigar you light. And if you're not, I always quote Zeno Davidoff, smoke less but better, and then turn that process into philosophy.
Smoke less but better. That's good. I remember running into a guy, this was at a Harley owners group rally back in, I think it was 2009. And he was one of the vendors selling, clothes and boots and apparel for the riders. And he had a really nice big display. He was smoking a cigar the entire week that he was there. Like every minute I ever saw him, he had a cigar in his mouth. And for me, I was a brand new cigar smoker at that time. I say not brand new. I hadn't been smoking very long, and I didn't really understand cigars. But even looking back, like, dude, why would you smoke one all day? First of all, that's expensive.
Yeah.
No matter how cheap it is, cigars are much more expensive than a cigarette. And he wasn't smoking Swisher Sweets. He wasn't smoking the stuff you buy at the gas station.
Rolled,
but something that would look like this. I have no idea what it was. It didn't have a band on it, but he was smoking something like that. I'm like, that can't be good for you, like to all the time, financially or health wise, to smoke the whole time. So I to this day, I don't know anybody that smokes cigars that often. If I had to look at my year on average, probably one a week.
Yeah.
But there are weeks I might smoke 3 or 4, and then there's 3 or 4 weeks I don't smoke
Depends
any.
on what's going on. But I think anything you're talking about can be abused. Anything you're talking about, you can do too much. And too much of a good thing is still bad for you. So I think same with alcohol. I have a massive respect of alcohol and what it does and why it was created. And that's why I don't abuse it. And now that's a bigger conversation for another day. That's a different thing. But my level of respect for tobacco and alcohol is, I love the process. I love the stories. I love what they did to create it. And I love the environment you get to consume it in. So I really respect that, so I don't abuse it and I don't do it too often. And yeah, coming up, smoking 4 or 5 a day, learning the industry, trying to smoke the entire humidor, trying to smoke through everything. That's part of the process of a tobacconist. But as I get older and as I get more experienced, I'm smoking less cigars, but only my favorites, so I can get back to that passion and find that excitement of every single time I smoke something.
Well, PJ, congratulations on all your success, man.
Thank you.
I admire what you've done, and I'm envious to the extent that I would love to own. I would love to own a shop like this. It's such a cool. I mean, you're sitting on the different side of the table than I am, but like from the outside looking in, as somebody who enjoys fine cigars, somebody who enjoys a nice cocktail from time to time, being on that side of the table is a very big interest to me. So congratulations on being able to build the life around what you are passionate about, what you enjoy. So you're successful, man. Congrats on that.
I appreciate it.
I'm going to give you the opportunity to have the last word on the show today. Anything you want to leave me with for advice on cigars or alcohol or business or life?
Figure out a way to do what you love and make money at it. I think you talk about success and all the different things. A means to an end is fine, but figure out your passion and then figure out how to make money at it.
And you've done that.
Smoking and drinking for a living. Could be worse.
All right, how can people get in touch with you, man? What's your socials?
I mean, come visit us at the stores, the social medias, at Franklin Cigar, at Nashville Cigar, at Martha's Nashville, and at the Ariston Bar. So come join us, drink, smoke, hang out, bullshit, whatever you like to do.
Well, I would highly recommend it. If you're in Nashville, come check out the Ariston right here on Church Street. Or if you want to go to just a cigar shop, like that doesn't necessarily have cocktails, but Franklin Cigar, Nashville Cigar, great place. And then over in East Nashville, Martha Madeira is a really great little cocktail bar. Get some food, some small plates and stuff over there. It's a really cool atmosphere. But thank you for being here. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for listening and watching this show. If you're not watching this on YouTube, you're missing out, because PJ and I have been sitting here smoking these cigars in the Ariston in their members only lounge that they have upstairs here, hanging out today. So big thanks to PJ and his team for letting us use the spot here today for the show. Listen, what he's talking about here is persistence. It's been the key to his success, and that idea of being present, which I think is very clever, because nobody else has said that on the show, is about the idea of you need to be present in your finances, present with your employees, present with the business. That's gold. So make sure you take that to heart. Listen to this show for more great conversations just like that. Tune in again when I talk with another very successful entrepreneur about his or her journey to success. Until next time, I am the real Jason Duncan, and as always, Jesus is King.